Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Charlotte County. I'm Dan Lambert, and I serve this congregation as minister. Our progressive, welcoming, inclusive, and judgment-free congregation is a liberal religious community of diverse and free-thinking individuals. UUFCC is a spiritual community where reason and social justice matter. As people who learn, love, share, and serve together, we welcome all into our family. We begin our service each week by sharing an invitation to gather together, even as we are scattered in many different places during this time. So let's sing Enter, Rejoice, and Zoom in together. And please clap your hands and do the jazz hands and just enjoy the song. Our worship associate this morning is Sharon Whitehill, and Sharon will introduce our chalice lighting time. Sharon, unmute yourself, please.
I thought I had.
Yay, technology.
Yes. Well, good morning, everyone. I would ask you please to wait to light your chalice at home until after the affirmation. Here are the chalice lighting words. If ever there were a time for a candle in darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, let us kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice.
Thank you, Sharon. Let's share our affirmation as we light this chalice. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and love, and to help one another. If you have a chalice you'd like to light at home right now, please take a moment and do that at this time. And now back to Sharon for our opening words.
The opening words that I've chosen this morning are from Rosa Parks, who at the time she refused to give up her seat on the bus was one of only 31 African Americans in Montgomery who were able to vote, registered to vote. This is an amalgam of what she has said about that famous moment. The bus was among the first ways I realized there was a Black world and a white world. People always say I refused to give up my seat because I was tired, but that isn't true. I was not tired physically. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in. Just having paid for a seat and riding for only a couple of blocks and then having to stand was too much. I say, stand for something or you will fall for anything. Today's mighty oak is yesterday's nut that held its ground.
Thank you, Sharon. And I think I saw somewhere this week that this is Rosa Parks' 100th birthday. Maybe in the past few days or coming up soon. So what a terrific icon of history she is. If you are a visitor with us, this is maybe your first time joining us on Zoom or on YouTube Live, we're so glad that you're here, and it's wonderful to be able to welcome visitors in Zoom during this time or through YouTube. If you're able to on Zoom, if you'd like to say hi, you could just share your name and just say howdy, and then a lot of folks will say howdy back because that's how friendly we are. So we just invite you to share your name and where you are and maybe why you decided to join us today. That would be wonderful. We love welcoming new folks with us. Every week, whenever we pick a song for the service, I do it with intentionality. The message of the song means something connected to the theme of the service. This week, of course, begins Black History Month, a time when we take special notice of the historical contributions from many folks in the Black community, a time when we learn about Black history in ways that maybe we haven't paid much attention to before. The song that we're going to share and sing today is called The Way It Is, and it's by a popular group called Bruce Hornsby and the Range. It is a song about history, and those are hard to find. The Way It Is has to do with just accepting history and current events just the way they are, and the problem with that. So I invite you to watch and sing along with Bruce Hornsby and the Range as we enjoy The Way It Is.
Just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Ah, but don't you believe them? Said, hey little boy, you can't go where the others go. You don't look like they do. Said, hey old man, how can you stand to think that way? Did you really think about it before you made the rules? He said so. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Oh, but don't you believe that? Just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is.
That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. I wonder how many times Rosa Parks had somebody say that to her. Stop fighting it. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. We're going to talk more about that in the message in a few minutes. Today's member spotlight, I'm very excited to introduce everyone to Jack and Joan Osborne, not because you haven't seen them or known them ever, but because we haven't seen them in a year. We are very excited for this member spotlight series, and Jack and Joan are an important part of our congregation and have held some important leadership roles in the past. So let's see if we can find Jack and Joan. And Jack, if you would unmute, tell us a little bit about your history and where you've come from and how you got here and every single thing about your life in 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, after the emotional, provocative song, we'll do our best. Good morning, dear friends, and all dear friends we haven't even met yet because of the pandemic. Thanks for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about ourselves. We've been members of UUFCC since March of 2005, 16 years. And they've been joyous ones at that. We live in Punta Gorda, Florida, in the Isles, in a condo. We've been happily married, at least I think we have been, for 30 years. We're snowbirds for the past 20 plus years. We spend 7 months here in Florida, and we've been going back for 5 months to a place called Schroon Lake above Albany. That's a part of the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York. We live on a lake up there and have a house. That might be coming to an end sometime sooner than later, but as it is, we're going to go back again this year. Regarding our history, for me, I used to define myself as the Irish Catholic boy from the Bronx. I'm probably still in recovery from both of those episodes. And Joan is a product of Dutch and German parents and was raised in the Dutch Reformed Church and is from Schenectady, New York. We both lived our adult lives in Syracuse, New York for a very long time. And we have an interesting history in coming together. But first, let's talk about our UUism. We've been UUs, at least I have, since 1974. That's 47 years. Joan, probably about 1985, roughly, when, yeah, something like that. 36 years when she started to come to our beloved May Memorial Unitarian Universalist Society in Syracuse, New York. Joan was an elementary school teacher. She has a master's degree and she retired from Tully, New York Central School District. Jack has a degree in mechanical technology from the State University of New York. And I spent my career in technical sales, mostly to do with computer systems for large building controls. And I retired from Siemens Corporation 28 years ago. Amazing. So our UU history, again, was we spent our adult lives in Syracuse, New York, and we were members of May Memorial UU Fellow or Society, as I said. And I was affiliated with Camp Unirondack, a Unitarian Universalist camp up near Lowville in the western Adirondack Mountains. I was on that board for over 10 years. Joan and I met at May Memorial UU Society in about 1985 when she first showed up. I was single at the time, and we established a friendship. We became part of the large friendship group that existed there. And so Joan was a single mom for 21 years with a single son by a previous marriage, she asked me to tell you. Um, at the time, I had been recently singled when she showed up, and some friends thought we might do well to share time together. And as it happened, we came together in marriage at May Memorial. And I have 4 kids. I have 3 daughters and a son. And we have also many years history of boating, both in New York State at Lake Ontario for 15 years with a sailboat. And we were very fortunate to move that to Lake Champlain off of Lake Ontario for a while. But it became obvious that we were leaving the lake house to go 50 miles to the lake sailboat, a somewhat ridiculous endeavor. So we sold the sailboat, and then in 2001, we bought our first property here, a condo in our same development. And I think we had the condo as a rental property. A week after buying the condo, I bought another sailboat for down here because that's why we're here. So we've sailed on the local waters for a long time. About 5 years ago, we sold a sailboat and went power to the dark side, as they say. And that boat is just been sold and will be heading over to the East Coast soon. So we're on new life's adventures, as every one of us is.
The boat's gonna be going east.
Yes, the boat is going over to the eastern shore. Right, we're not moving. We're here. So our new life's adventures currently involve Joan having a declining memory diagnosis, and me, I'm working not only caretaking with Joan, but my youngest daughter is being treated for colon cancer. So things are busy, and they're changing, as always, as they are for all of us. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jack and Joan. And whoever suggested years ago that you would be a nice couple was absolutely right, because I think you're a damn cute couple. And thank you for sharing a little bit of your lives with us today. At this time, we invite you to share items in the Book of Life, which is our chat room here in Zoom. Items that you might like to share with us, joys and concerns, things to celebrate, anniversaries, birthdays, promotions, wonderful things that have happened to you, your friends, or your family, or concerns that you have about the health or a job situation or finances or anything else that comes to mind that you would like to share with us as a community. Sharing is important because it helps us not only to spread that good energy of the things to celebrate, but it also helps us to share the negative energy so that we can share it and bear that burden together. So we'll give you a moment to write items in the Book of Life that you would like to share as we share an instrumental for the next few minutes. So go ahead and take this time to share joys and concerns in the chat room for our Book of Life. Mm-hmm. Thank you all for sharing, and I know that it may take another moment or so for folks to continue to share some items in the chat room, and that's perfectly fine. At this time, though, we invite you to calm your mind, to clear your spirit, and to enter into a minute of silent meditation with us. Our lives are busy, things are hectic, even though we're at home most of the time, the pandemic continues and the world continues to move. But we invite you to take this minute to clear all of that away, to take some deep breaths in and to blow them out, to allow the universe to help you calm, to feel relaxed, and to shut out all distractions around you. So as we do that, we will have total silence for just 1 minute. If there's any noise in your house, I encourage you to turn that off and to just focus on the graphic that you'll see on your screen and meditate in silence for 1 minute, starting now. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that today is also the Super Bowl. Some of you I know are sports ball fans of one type or another, and if you like football, today's kind of a big deal in our culture, and that's perfectly great. Last night, NFL awards were handed out, and if you're a fan, you're familiar with the name Aaron Rodgers. He's the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, and he won his third NFL Most Valuable Player trophy last night. And in his acceptance speech, he said something that sounded very, very, very Unitarian Universalist. He said that he encouraged people to read books, to meditate, to speak things to life, to manifest the desires of your heart, to question everything, and to spread love and positivity. And when I read that this morning, I thought, wow, he certainly sounds like a Unitarian Universalist minister. So happy Super Bowl tonight. If you watch, hopefully you're doing that at home with your loved ones that you live with and not with a big group, but it's kind of a fun day in our culture. So hopefully you enjoy that if you like the sports ball at all. One great purpose of the world's faith traditions is to bring humanity closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. One purpose of this congregation is to encourage all who gather here to grow more and more generous in both spirit and in action. Even during this pandemic, when we can only gather virtually online, we still take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that supports this congregation and our many, many ongoing ministries. You can make donations by mailing them here to our office, by auto payment through your bank, which an increasing number of you are doing, which is fantastic, or you can give electronically using the Venmo app on your smartphone. And thank you for your continued giving. So the song that we sang a little bit ago, Just the Way It Is, Bruce Hornsby and the Range. The lyrics challenge us to simply not accept history the way it is, to not accept our current reality. The teller of the story, the narrator, says, don't you believe it? Don't you believe it? Things can change. Don't just accept it the way it is. From the USA Today website, which is one of my favorite news sources, this was a story that they shared yesterday. The name of Nance Leggins Costley could resonate amid the likes of Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and other Black abolitionist figures. But her story is hardly known. Not in Illinois, where despite anti-slavery laws, she was born into bondage. Not in the city of Pekin, where despite anti-Black attitudes, she became a beloved community figure. And certainly not in Peoria, where despite her very impressive life, she is now buried in disgrace. Perhaps her story is more subtle than those of high-profile abolitionist leaders, yet her fortitude was astounding. Barely a teenager, she first stood up for her own civil rights in a court of law that was stacked against Black people. Even amid legal defeats, she kept seeking the most basic of human rights, freedom. She eventually won her freedom thanks to none other than the lawyer Abraham Lincoln. Her victory came in 1841, long before that attorney became the nation's president, and more than 20 years before he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Thus, Nance Leggins Costley became the first Black person freed from bondage by Abraham Lincoln, to eventually be followed, of course, by 4 million other Black slaves. This case pushed a previously ambivalent Lincoln toward an anti-slavery stance. And it was possibly the first time Abraham Lincoln first gave serious thought to the conditions of slavery. And for all that, not only is her story relatively unknown, Nance Leggins Costley's final resting place is marked with no honor. In fact, it's not marked at all. Decades ago, her graveyard in Peoria, Illinois was paved over with asphalt to make a parking lot. The grave of freed slave Nance Leggins Costley lies somewhere amid a muffler shop, a union hall, an auto repair garage, and other commercial buildings, forgotten and trampled by the march of progress, under a tombstone of asphalt. History. That's just the way it is. History. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Remember that little mnemonic ditty from your youth? Well, it helped me remember the correct year and the event so I could get one question right on a quiz in a history class. But as a kid, I only learned about that event from a white European vantage point. Columbus was simply trying to find a faster way to sail from Spain to India so trading could be enhanced, profits could rise, and European royalty could grow in power. Sea travel was faster than land travel at the time. Well, on the way from there to India, he landed in the Bahamas instead. And in doing so, he brought the natives there the benefit of European knowledge, improved their farming and hunting, and changed their lives for the better by introducing them to Christianity. Doesn't that all sound wonderful? I mean, history is just history after all, right? Did you ever stop to wonder, though, how the natives living on the island that they called Guanahani experienced Columbus's arrival? When Columbus arrived at the Bahamian island of Guanahani, which he renamed San Salvador because he thought he had the authority to do so in 1492, he encountered the Taino people, whom he described in his diary as naked as the day they were born. The Taino had a complex hierarchical religious, political, and social system. They were skilled farmers and navigators. They wrote music and poetry and created powerfully expressive art. At the time of Columbus's exploration, the Taino were mostly numerous indigenous people and the most numerous in the entire Caribbean. Some of that tribe inhabited what's now known as Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. Massive people group at the time. But by the year 1550, less than 60 years later, the Taino were close to extinction thanks primarily to diseases brought by the Spaniards. Columbus's landing on Guanahani was far from the triumph for the Taino people and other people groups of the Caribbean. White Europeans introduced foreign disease, foreign crops, foreign animals, foreign culture, foreign religion to those people groups, all but destroying them in the process. The Europeans thought this was a good thing, though. The white settlers, or maybe we should call them conquerors, maybe invaders, possibly interlopers, brought advanced ways of living to the savages as they saw it, and understood and introduced Jesus to save their souls as well. All history is the same, right? In Columbus's journal, he wrote this about landing on Guanahani and encountering the Taino. Quote, "There I found very many islands filled with innumerable people, and I have taken possession of them all. Done by proclamation, with royal standard unfurled, and no opposition from the people was offered to me." Paints quite a rosy picture, doesn't it? The victors write the history. As excited as most of us were to watch the inauguration of Joe Biden as our 46th president on January 20th, just a couple of weeks ago, it had some teeth-clenching moments. Popular Puerto Rican American singer, actress, and entertainer Jennifer Lopez was one of a number of people invited to share their talent in different ways during the inauguration itself. However, one of her seemingly innocuous song choices stirred some controversy due to its white Eurocentric lyrics. You're not going to be happy about this, possibly, when I share it. It's a very popular song, one that you have sung dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of times in your life, a song that you probably love. And all I have to do is say the first three words, and you'll finish it whether you want to or not. This land is your land. This land is my land. It's a Woody Guthrie song. It's as all-American as it comes. Woody Guthrie is as all-American as it gets. And you've probably always assumed that song is simply harmless and benign. Let me read some more of the lyrics. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway, saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. In Woody Guthrie's mind, do you suppose he intended to write from a white European historical perspective? Of course, he didn't mean to, but he did, because that's all that he knew. Do you understand, though, why Native Americans, indigenous people, could be upset by the lyrics of this song being sung at the inauguration of a president who had promised to be the most diverse and inclusive in American history? This land is your land, this land is my land is simply a theme. It's an anthem for white Europeans to conquer the entire continent and to subjugate Native Americans to reservations, nearly wiping them out in the process. What did the white Americans do to the Native Americans in sharing the land that was made for you and me? Were the indigenous peoples treated as if the land was made for you and me? Did the white European settlers, the conquerors, the explorers, treat the Native Americans as if there was plenty to share? Were the native resources of America treated with the honor and reverence and respect that was commanded by the spirituality of Native Americans? Of course, we know the answer to those questions. So yes, many indigenous people were offended that Jennifer Lopez sang that song on January 20th at the inauguration. Same history, different perspective. Same history, different historical realities. When the preamble to the Constitution says, "we the people," who was included in that phrase by the founding fathers? Who was excluded? It's very intentional. It was written by rich and powerful white men who, after a lot of debate, agreed to simply leave out Black slaves, to leave out women, to leave out those who didn't own land, who weren't wealthy, from being included in that otherwise inspirational phrase, "we the people." What about the Pledge of Allegiance? The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. You know the words. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with what? Liberty and justice for all. Of course, parenthetically, we know the under God part wasn't added until the 1950s, but that's a different discussion. But how have we done in America with the liberty and justice for all part in 240 years since the Constitution was ratified? Ironically, this pledge, the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, has its roots in a decidedly unjust and deeply divided post-Civil War America. The pledge that later evolved into the form we use today was composed originally in August of 1892 by Francis Bellamy, who was a Baptist minister and a Christian socialist. His Pledge of Allegiance was first published in the September 8th issue of a popular children's magazine called The Youth's Companion, as part of the National Public School celebration of, ironically, Columbus Day, the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus' arrival in the Americas. So in what way, at that time, in the 1890s, did all Americans enjoy liberty and justice for all? The intended purpose of the pledge was to teach school children to have respect for the flag and for America, to bring pride and unity in a deeply divided America after the Civil War. It was intended to be recited in schools daily. Growing up, going to school beginning in the late 1860s and through the 1960s and the 1970s, I recited the Pledge of Allegiance every single day, standing by my desk, hand over my heart, day after day after day, year after year after year, as I'm sure most of you did as well. As I mentioned, Bellamy was a socialist, and he had also considered including the word equality in liberty and justice for all. Liberty, equality, and justice for all. But he decided against this, knowing that the superintendents of education who were going to use this were very much against equality for women and equality for African Americans. Liberty and justice for all. And of course, we can talk about women, the female experience with American history. In what ways does American history look different from a female perspective? Well, we could talk about legal rights. We could talk about financial rights, land ownership rights, employment rights, on and on. It's been only very recently in American history that a woman could even open her own credit card account without having her husband's approval. And land ownership, heredity, All of those things were factors for women in America. What about the Black American experience? How is that different than the white American experience? That, of course, is what this entire month is about. Honoring and understanding Black history. Just consider, for example, the Confederate flag and what that means, what it stands for. It doesn't just stand for a culture, doesn't just stand for the pride of the South. It doesn't stand for states' rights. It stands ultimately on the insistence that an entire group of people believed they had the right under the authority of God as expressed in the Bible to own other human beings. And the flag symbolizes that. Or the use of the term Dixie that we see in many places. Consider all of the places named for Confederate leaders, statues in their honor. I just read yesterday that Sarasota County has taken down 2 flags now that are honoring Confederate leaders. Have you ever considered that Lee County, Florida, just a few miles to our south, was named for Robert E. Lee in 1877, more than 20 years after he lost the Civil War? We could go on and on and on. Gay and lesbian perspectives on United States history are also very different, as is the Latino perspective, the poor people's perspective. On and on and on we could go. Mentally or emotionally challenged people in their history. Imagine being convicted, for example, of being a witch for simply having what we call today autism. That is part of American history. I could go on, but I assume that you have the point. If you'd like to read more about these perspectives, our UU publisher, Beacon Hill Press, has several books that might interest you. Some of these titles include A Black Women's History of the United States, A Disability History of the United States, A Queer History of the United States, An African American and Latinx History of the United States, and An Indigenous Peoples History of the United States. These are all available through Beacon Hill Press. In fact, Lori, if you'll unlock the chat room, let me put the web link for that into chat in case anybody wants to do that. So I'm going to go to chat and see if I can do that. Boom, there it is. There's your link if you're interested in any of those books and looking at what's available. So if we are to live out our second principle and covenant to affirm justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, which is our second principle as Unitarian Universalists, we need to consider how those who have experienced injustice, inequity, and a lack of compassion throughout America's history have lived and experienced that history. Our sixth principle declares that our goal is a community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. It's our sixth principle. So friends, as you hear terms like cancel culture or political correctness or critical race theory, I encourage you to really research what they mean and what those who use those terms are really trying to convey. What's so wrong with holding people accountable for the harmful, mean, racist, or sexist things that they say? What's so wrong with encouraging us to be more sensitive about the words and terms we use so we can be more inclusive and compassionate in our communications? What's so wrong with raising awareness of how different races, different cultures, different sexes, and so on have experienced our supposedly shared American history? There's nothing wrong with any of that. In fact, Unitarian Universalist theology demands that we do that work. We are striving to make our world more and more just and more welcoming for all. Understanding that not all history is the same is just one more way we can work to make that goal a reality for everyone that we love, that we value as we work for total inclusivity. Amen and blessed be. Sharon has our closing words.
They are, and these are from Barbara Jordan, the American lawyer, civil rights leader and senator from Texas. And I did not consult with Reverend Dan about these words, but he did cite the phrase that these words are focused on, as you'll hear. Barbara Jordan, we the people. It is a very eloquent beginning. But when that document was completed on the 17th of September in 1787, I was not included in that we the people. I felt somehow for many years that George Washington and Alexander Hamilton just left me out by mistake. But through the process of amendment, interpretation, and court decision, I have finally been included in we, the people.
Those are perfect closing words. Thank you, Sharon, for being on the same wavelength as our message. Just a few things I'd like to share in life of the community for today. As you know, if you've been around a while, in January, February, March, April, we have a social justice speaker series that we hold after the service on Sunday mornings once a month. So we're going to try to do that beginning this month using Zoom. And so today is the very first social justice speaker series. And I'm wondering, Herb, if you're around, could you share a little bit about that today and who our speaker is and what we need to do to participate? Is Herb, there's Herb. Sorry to catch you off guard, Herb.
No. I'm never at a loss for words, my friend, never. Okay. Well, first of all, I should clarify the name, and I have to say, this is all my fault. It is the Peace Initiative Speaker Series, and it has gone on for years, and it was initiated really by Ted Zawistowski, and I thank him for being the originator of this attempt to bring in additional knowledge about things that we will be interested in. Today, our speaker is Neil Volz. Lance Wissinger, who was his companion in arms, was to join him, but had the misfortune of being in a motorcycle accident, so he will not be able to join us. He'll be all right, but it'll be Neil, who is co-founder of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, FRRC. And this is a group that works to get ex-felons reactivated in the voting arena. And we had Lance speak with us last year, and Neil is here to give us an update and to speak to their future plans. We do have another election coming up. Really? Yes, very soon. So what you have to do is simply stay around for the conversation at the end of service. And at the end of conversation, you'll fold immediately into the ability to hear Neil speak. And it doesn't get any easier. Just don't go away.
So don't log off. But if you do need to leave or log off, you can come back in at noon to join that conversation as well. So excellent. Very good. Thank you so much, Herb, for sharing. I appreciate that. This is our final reminder that our Zoom auction that we rely on for some of our budget is actually going to be live on Zoom Saturday night next week, February the 13th. I know that you've been receiving a lot of emails. There was one yesterday specifically from Kay with instructions about how to sign up for that live Zoom auction. We have lots of items. We have entertainment. We have some jokes that we'll be sharing. I'm going to serve as master of ceremonies, and who knows what could happen. Hopefully a lot of fun, a lot of laughter, and raising some good money for the congregation. I know that we have some wonderful items available in the auction. If you haven't yet, please log in to uufc.net, not uufc.org, but uufc.net to look at the auction items and learn more about participating. If you're unsure about any of that, you can contact the office. You can contact myself. you can contact Kay Azar and we'll try to clarify any confusion. But there's some fantastic creative auction items available. I just added one yesterday that actually helps to pay for a peephole that we need in the door by Mary Jane's office over here. You could have a peephole in the door named after you if you win this item bidding in the auction. And I bet there are very few of us that have ever thought about naming a peephole after ourselves or someone that we love. So that can be a thing. One more thing, the producers of the annual Racial Monologues, which is a super important and vital presentation that our racial justice group does each year, we're putting together a different type of service for Sunday morning, February 28th, titled Racial Awakenings. They're inviting anyone who identifies as a person of color in any way to contact Ginger Abraham to hear how you can participate in the service if you'd like to. So you can email Ginger at gm54uu@gmail.com and say, yes, I identify as a person of color and I have an experience that I'd like to share or would like to participate in some way. That'll be a fantastic opportunity. Whew, all right, that was kind of a lot. So now, as we bring the service to a close, we extinguish this chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. And now our community benediction, go now in peace.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of us surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere.
And now, as we bring the service to a close, as I do each week, I will encourage you to be a blessing to everyone you meet, no matter where you may go. Be a blessing to those sharing a home with you because they have to share a home with you during a pandemic. And be a blessing to yourself because you need that grace and mercy to extend to yourself because these are very, very difficult times. So be a blessing to everyone, no matter where you may go. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to stick around for social hour, we'll put you in chat room. So just hang tight and you'll be assigned a chat room to join a few others for some chat. And stick around for noon, 12 o'clock for our initial 2021 Peace Initiative